In a monotone, rapid-fire manner, Trudy's questions started flying around like hamsters caught in a Kenmore spin cycle. Do you have your store card? Do you want paper or plastic? Did you find everything okay? Do you have any coupons? Are you eligible for a student or senior citizen discount? Will this be cash, check, credit, or debit? Would you like help loading your groceries, sir? Unable to hear that fast, Craig felt underprepared and a little intimidated, so he had to give the question some thought. If he were being honest, most of them were reasonable, except for two. Did you find everything okay? And would you like help loading your groceries? Craig responded to the first one. Well, let's see. I only have 2 items here. First, I found this one, and then I found that one. So yes, I'm quite comfortable stating for the official record I did indeed find everything okay. As for needing help loading my purchases, let's give 'em a look-see-loo, shall we? I have 2 items that I can fit easily into my glove box. In the words of Toby Keith, I'm as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. So, in reply to your affront to my manliness, I'll have to say, yeah, I think I can manage the load. Craig smiled triumphantly, taking pride in his surgical dismantling of Trudy. But as Lorna often said, regarding family gatherings, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt. Then it's hilarious. Trudy rang up the 2 items, and Craig handed her his credit card. She processed the transaction and handed Craig the receipt, grinning like a Cheshire cat. What's so humorous? Yeah, old witch. He wondered. Then he realized this was when he'd pay for his insolence. Because this was when, after charging the items, he'd have to sign the charge slip. Trudy had set a trap for him, and his arrogance and foolishness had led him right into it. Now he faced the consequences of a powerful and shrewd opponent. To his great horror, Craig realized that the only pen available was the one Trudy had been using to scratch her nasty head. The devil with a blue smock on was going so hard at the back of her greasy orb that he couldn't tell whether she was mining coal or dislodging a stubborn tick. Ow! He inwardly screeched. The corners of Trudy's lips stretched upward, displaying a wicked, toothless grin. Her contorted face reminded Craig of the Grinch, only uglier and with far less charm. Need a pen, hon? She mewed. N-O-O-O. Craig wailed. Not that he didn't need a pen. He didn't want that pen. He summoned his daring and looked Trudy straight in the eye that wasn't wandering. Okay, sister. We can settle this minor dilemma in one of 2 ways. You can sanitize that pen, perhaps with some of that industrial strength solvent you're using as perfume, or I can chew off my hand and sign my name with the bloody stump. Trudy's legend as a grizzled veteran of checkout counter showdowns was well known among the townsfolk. She was radiant as she took notice of the sweat beads leaking through the pores on Craig's twitching face. The apprehension in his uncertain eyes was the cherry on top. She'd seen that look countless times, and it never ceased to delight her. The checkout line fell silent as the other customers stared on in suspense at the clash of the 2 titans. In that desperate moment, Craig could have sworn he heard a lone wolf howling in the distance, its haunting song drifting along on a cold prairie wind from the dairy section. His confidence wavered like a Girl Scout who just lipped off at Conor McGregor. Trudy drew first, calling Craig's bluff. Shall I void your purchase, or are you gonna stand there scratching your balls while the rest of us wait? A small boy, who looked to be about 7, called out to Craig. Don't do it, mister. Don't let her win. Steady, son, his mother said, putting her arm around his thin shoulders and pulling him closer. Sometimes, a man has got to come to terms with his limitations. But, Ma, the boy replied, who'll stand up for us now? An elderly man near the back of the ever-growing line encouraged Craig. He's right, young fella. Why don't ya hop up on the counter? We, the common folk, will see you there, and it will give us hope. Craig shivered under Trudy's glacial glare. The woman was an oak, stoic, strong, and immovable. He hated letting the other shoppers down after he'd given them a small taste of victory over the dark domain that was Trudy's express line. But he knew they'd picked the wrong savior. Trudy was another female conqueror in his miserable life over which he held no power. I'm sorry, folks, Craig said mournfully. I know y'all and Bonnie Tyler have been holding out for a hero, but I just ain't him. He looked at the young boy who cheered him on. Don't fret, lil fella. A hero will come one day, and that hero might just be you. Craig's demon. The air in the room was frigid and stank of rotting meat. The unearthly groans spewing from the small, spindly creature's mouth chilled Maddie to her core. The vile words it used to remind her of her every mistake and shortcoming filled her with shame and sadness. Things worsened when it began pulling her dead mother's precious name into its swirling vortex of profanity and cruelty. There were no sacred cows here. The child-shaped monster jumped from the bed, horrifying and sickening Maddie, causing her to gasp as it fell 3 feet in front of her. She stifled her screams when its knees snapped in the opposite direction, its legs now resembling those of an animal. Its scalp was a hodgepodge of bloody patches where it had yanked out its hair. Raven eyes with scarlet irises glided forward with a muted squish. Please, don't let him pop out, Maddie thought. I'm sick enough as it is. Fear froze her, leaving her unable to flee, unable to defend herself. The disjointed ghoul crept toward her like a spider getting ready to feast on its struggling prey. With each step, the creature snapped its head toward a piece of furniture, willing it to fall over. The terrifying result made the whole room shake. The demon's jaws creaked as it opened its mouth wide enough to fit a football. It unleashed long, ear-splitting wails that fell somewhere between the howls of hell's tortured souls and a lunatic's laugh. Then it fell silent and smiled. "Wanna see something scary?" it asked Maddie. It clomped towards a bedroom wall, but instead of stopping, it walked up and across the ceiling, where it hung upside down like an oversized bat. Maddie, Maddie, such a whore. Maddie, Maddie, bolt the door. Maddie broke free of her horror and scrambled to the hallway, slamming the door shut behind her. She secured the bolt she'd installed when the thing first turned feral. Her pounding nerves pulsed, making her whole being quake. God, help me, please. Maddie struggled to accept that a week prior, the malevolent demon haunting her bedroom had been her 9-year-old son, Silas. Craig hated going to the grocery store and was glad of it. If he enjoyed going there, he'd visit more often, which would be terrible because he hated going to the grocery store. Today's mission was a simple one: strawberry Pop-Tarts for him and a box of twat stoppers for Lorna. He made sure he got the exact brand she demanded, otherwise she'd never let him forget it. She was still angry with him for giving away the ending to the movie Titanic. Craig was inches away from a clean getaway with his items when, just before entering the express lane, a short, stumpy woman cut him off. She was a loathsome, half-witted hobbit who'd somehow shoehorned her flabby body into a black Leonard Skyneard t-shirt and a bulging pair of tiger-striped workout leotards. "'Excuse me, Honorable. I got young un's bacon in the truck," she said through neon pink lips that looked like the boys down at Gas Monkey Garage had painted on. the woman showed no consideration for Craig. To make matters worse, she had no regard for the universal supermarket rule of 10 items, or less in the express lane. She'd filled her cart with such culinary curiosities as Cheetos, Fritos, Doritos, Yo-Hos, Lo-Hos, Yo-Hoo, Law, Saji Deng Lings, and a 6-pack of diet soda. Craig wondered at this point in the game if washing down a box of Little Debbie's with a diet soda wasn't like tossing a sponge into the Atlantic. Come on, Gail. Start living La Vida Loca. Grab that 2-liter bottle of Mountain Dew and chug, baby, chug, he thought. Adding insult to injury, Jabba the Nut was attempting to pay for her sugary treasure with a third party, post-dated, out of state starter check drawn on the Bank of Tehran. The bride of Frankenberry finished her transaction and left, leaving Craig and others in line to ponder why lightning wasn't more selective. Craig was happy the worst was over, that is until he saw the cashier. With a groan, he thought, everyone, please remain seated. Coz, now that the opening act has primed the annoyance pump. It's time for tonight's headliner to take the stage. Let's give a big round of sound. Kids, for Trudy the surly cashier. Trudy represented the worst in cashierdom. She'd been ringing up pork chops and dental floss for far too many years. The harrowing, soul-sucking journey was leaving her bitter, tired, and broken. Every customer she encountered was like a yammering half-wit to her. Someone who'd squabble over an expired 3-cent coupon on a can of creamed corn. Craig's experience as a battle-worn shopper made him aware that this was the precise moment when Trudy would adopt the role of an army field interrogator. Captured Syrian insurgents don't undergo the kind of grilling I'm about to endure, thought Craig. In a monotone, rapid-fire manner, Trudy's questions started flying around like hamsters caught in a Kenmore spin cycle. Do you have your store card? Do you want paper or plastic? Did you find everything okay? Do you have any coupons? Are you eligible for a student or senior citizen discount? Will this be cash, check, credit, or debit? Would you like help loading your groceries, sir? Unable to hear that fast, Craig felt underprepared and a little intimidated, so he had to give the questions some thought. If he were being honest, most of them were reasonable, except for 2. Did you find everything okay? And would you like help loading your groceries? Craig responded to the first one. Well, let's see. I only have 2 items here. First, I found this one, and then I found that one. So yes, I'm quite comfortable stating for the official record I did indeed find everything okay. As for needing help loading my purchases, let's give 'em a look-see-loo, shall we? I have 2 items that I can fit easily into my glove box. In the words of Toby Keith, I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. So, in reply to your affront to my manliness, I'll have to say, yeah, I think I can manage the load. Craig smiled triumphantly, taking pride in his surgical dismantling of Trudy. But, as Lorna often said, regarding family gatherings, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt, then it's hilarious. Trudy rang up the 2 items, and Craig handed her his credit card. She processed the transaction and handed Craig the receipt, grinning like a Cheshire cat. What's so humorous? Yeah, old witch, he wondered. Then he realized this when he'd pay for it. His insolence. Because this was when, after charging the items, he'd have to sign the charge slip. Trudy had set a trap for him, and his arrogance and foolishness had led him right into it. Now, he faced the consequences of a powerful and shrewd opponent. To his great horror, Craig realized that the only pen available was the one Trudy had been using to scratch her nasty head. The devil with a blue smock on was going so hard at the back of her greasy orb that he couldn't tell whether she was mining coal or dislodging a stubborn tick. "Ah!" he inwardly screeched. Corners of Trudy's lips stretched upward, displaying a wicked, toothless grin. Her contorted face reminded Craig of the Grinch, only uglier and with far less charm. "Need a pen, hun?" she mewed. "N-O-O-O," Craig wailed. Not that he didn't need a pen, he didn't want that pen. He summoned his daring and looked Trudy straight in the eye that wasn't wandering. "Okay, sister. We can settle this minor dilemma in one of two ways. You can sanitize that pen, perhaps, with some of that industrial strength solvent you're using as perfume, or I can chew off my hand and sign my name with the bloody stump." Trudy's legend as a grizzled veteran of checkout counter showdowns was well known among the townsfolk. She was radiant as she took notice of the sweat beads leaking through the pores on Craig's twitching face. The apprehension in his uncertain eyes was the cherry on top. She'd seen that look countless times and had never ceased to delight her. The checkout line fell silent as the other customers stared on in suspense at the clash of the two titans. In that desperate moment, Craig could have sworn he heard a lone wolf howling in the distance, its haunting song drifting along on a cold prairie wind from the dairy section. His confidence wavered like a Girl Scout who just lipped off at Conor McGregor. Trudy drew first, calling Craig's bluff. "Shall I void your purchase, or are you gonna stand there scratching your balls while the rest of us wait?" A small boy, who looked to be about 7, called out to Craig. "Don't do it, mister. Don't let her win." "Steady, son," his mother said, putting her arm around his thin shoulders and pulling him closer. "Sometimes a man has got to come to terms with his limitations." "But, Ma," the boy replied, "who'll stand up for us now?" An elderly man near the back of the ever-growing line encouraged Craig. "He's right, young fella. Why don't Shay hop up on the counter? We, the common folk, will see you there, and it will give us hope." Craig shivered under Trudy's glacial glare. The woman was an oak, stoic, strong, and immovable. He hated letting the other shoppers down after he'd given them a small taste of victory over the dark domain that was Trudy's express line. But he knew they'd picked the wrong savior. Trudy was another female conqueror in his miserable life, over which he held no power. "I'm sorry, folks," Craig said mournfully. "I know y'all and Bonnie Tyler have been holding out for a hero, but I just ain't him." He looked at the young boy who'd cheered him on. "Don't fret, lil' fella. A hero will come one day, and that hero might just be you." "Shove it, Daffodil," the child shouted, flipping Craig the bird. Everyone in the checkout line lowered their heads in dejection, their gleeful grins fading into gloomy frowns of surrender. Craig sighed, wallowing in the humiliation of his failure. He accepted he had no choice but to give in and use Trudy's pen/skull probe to sign his name. His thoughts were somber. Resistance is futile. Her will is too strong. "I'm Mead Culpepper, and she's Rooster Cogburn charging across a smoky field, reins in her teeth, a revolver in one hand, and a Winchester in the other." And so it was, with solemn acquiescence, coated with a putrid oil of revulsion, that Craig grimly, achingly, signed his name. Craig chucked the small bag of items through the open window of his truck, nearly hitting his dog, El Superbo, in his big, empty noggin. As he walked around to the driver's side door, his cell phone chirped. He pulled it from his wrinkled cargo shorts and glanced at the caller ID. It was his cousin, Maddie, calling. Although the two were close more like siblings than cousins, their busy lives kept them from keeping in touch. Craig figured it must be something important for her to call him out of the blue. He swiped the call button. "Hey there, Maddie. It's been a while. Is everything—" "Craig, I need your help," Maddie blubbered. "It's Silas." Craig had never heard his cousin so distraught. She was one of the most upbeat people he knew. She stayed strong for herself and Silas, even when her loser husband, Danny, left to start a band combining country and rap music, a genre Lorna nicknamed crap. For her to cry out for help, this had been something awful. "Slow ride? Take it easy," said Craig. "Tell me what's going on with my little buddy, Silas." Maddie choked back her emotions long enough to make herself understood. "Craig, he's changed. I think he might be possessed." Craig's first thought was that Silas was acting out. Lord knew he had a right to. But after the bizarre and haunting experiences he and Lorna had gone through over the last several months, he took Maddie's concern seriously. "Okay, Maddie, I want to help you. But first, gotta get somewhere quiet. There's too many people yelling in the background. That ain't a group of people. Craig, that's Silas." Craig parked his truck in front of Maddie's puke green two-story house. From the outside, everything was peaceful. Birds were singing, bees were buzzing, and a fuzzy kitten was crapping in the yard. "It's best you stay here," Craig said to El Superbo, who was gnawing on his favorite chew toy, a large stuffed giraffe. "I ain't exactly sure what's going on inside of there, but I got a feeling it might be something scary. And we don't do scary too good, do we, boy?" Craig remembered the cowardly way he and El Superbo had conducted themselves during the fiasco in the woods around his daddy's place. Even now, he wondered if he should fire up the truck and peel out before the going got tough. He felt a sharp twinge of shame about how easily the idea had occurred to him. But then, he hailed from a long line of cowards. Craig's great-grandfather on his daddy's side, Cooter Wonkamoff, had survived the sinking of the Lusitania by fashioning a life raft made entirely out of women and children. Mary Poots McFadden, his maternal grandmother, had had a disabling dread of heights her husband. Jeremiah had feared widths. Craig accepted early on that spinelessness flowed through his vein, like sissified sap, after wearing floaties to his baptism when he was 15 years old. "Come on now," Craig grumbled to himself. "This is Maddie we're talking about. She's in there with God knows what, and you're out here marinating in chicken poop soup." Craig looked at the rundown house ahead of him and frowned at its sorry state since Danny had left. Unkempt hedges surrounded the front like a spiky green moat. Knee-high grass, a couple of scraggly dogwoods, and a cracked birdbath covered in white splotches made the property look like a magazine cover for better homes and landfills. The only thing missing from the neglected yard was a "for sale by neighbors" sign. Craig turned to El Superbo. "I gotta go in there, don't I? I gotta do this for Maddie and Silas. Don't suppose you want to go in with me, do ya?" El Superbo belched and began dry humping the giraffe. "That's what I figured," Craig sighed. He got out of the truck, slammed the door shut, and walked toward the house. With his knuckles raised, ready to knock on the porch door, it flew open, and a hand shot out, grabbing his t-shirt and hauling him inside. "Thank God you're here," Maddie bawled. "I think Silas is getting worse. He rails against me and God nonstop. I ain't slept more than an hour or two in the last few days. And even then, I have terrible dreams." "When did it all start?" Craig asked. "About 2 weeks ago," Maddie said, rubbing her red eyes with the balls of her palms. The first time he showed signs that something was wrong, he woke up with a fever. He wasn't coughing or sick on his stomach. His skin was hot boiling. Then the night terrors started. He'd wake up screaming and flailing a couple of times each night. What kind of bad dreams was they? It was always the same one. He'd find himself in a pitch-black space. He said it was cold and smelled like rotten eggs and dead things. He couldn't see through the darkness, but he could hear people shuffling around him, moaning and weeping. Sometimes they'd brush up against him. He said they felt so cold it took his breath away, like when Ya jump in a freezing pond. Somebody with a scary voice was calling his name from far off. He said that as they drew closer, he felt a terror growing inside him. He wanted to run, but in the blackness, he didn't know which direction to go. He cried out for help, but nobody answered him except for that voice in the shadows. It kept calling his name. He said that after a while, he felt a breath on his neck and heard a voice whisper, "Mama can't hear you in hell." Fear sprinkled small, cold dots on Craig's skin. He wondered again if he'd made the right choice in coming. The pleading look on Maddie's haggard face reminded him he had. What came next? His entire personality changed. He got angry over little things. Then it got worse, so much worse. His body started twisting into horrible shapes. His eyes turned black as onyx. Then he turned violent and mean. "Oh, Craig, you wouldn't believe some of the terrible things he said about me, things he couldn't possibly know. When's the last time you checked on him?" "About an hour ago." His room got quiet, so I went up there, hoping that he'd finally gone to sleep. But he wasn't sleeping, he was levitating. His body was spread out, like Jesus on the cross. I heard these quick, loud rips. Then holes appeared in his palms and feet. They was oozing black slime, Lord. How it stank. I wanted to scream until my throat seized up, but by then, I'd plumb run out of screams. Speaking of which, you might want to prepare for what you're going to see up there. Try hard not to panic. Fear only makes it laugh. Will he hurt us? Asked Craig, his jaw tight with tension. If it wants to, why are you calling Silas? He's still your child, Maddie. Maddie's chest hitched. Fresh tears trailed down her pale cheeks. Because I don't rightly know where my baby is now. But I know that demon thing upstairs ain't him. Craig's nose whistled as he exhaled. All right, let's go check it out. Craig took his time ascending the steep staircase. He felt as if he were sneaking into a lion's cage to steal its meat. He heard Maddie following him. Creaking of their footsteps on the stairs sounded like thunder in the eerie silence. As they walked, he noticed short, nervous breaths filling the air, only to realize they were coming from him. When he reached the top, he hesitated, almost causing Maddie to rear-end him. You got this, Craig. Craig swallowed nervously, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. Yeah, Maddie, I got this. Do you want to go first, or does it matter? It might be best if it sees a new face. Maybe it'll feel outnumbered. Works for me. Craig crept to the bedroom door and readied himself. He eased open the door. He was relieved and surprised to see Silas sitting up in bed, smiling as if he'd finished. Watching a funny cartoon. The boy looked normal. No holes, no screaming, and no floating in midair. Normal. Silas, Craig asked. That Chew boy? Well, who else was you expecting? Silas asked, cheerfully. He looked at Maddie. Mama, are you okay? You look tired and sad. Silas looked surprised by the toppled furniture littering his room. Mama, what happened to my stuff? Was there an earthquake while I was sleeping? Maddie took cautious steps toward Silas's bed, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. Baby, are you okay? Are you better now? She asked tentatively. Maddie's concern deepened the boy's confusion. Of course. Mama, why wouldn't I be okay? Seeing no signs of spiritual shenanigans, annoyance began overtaking Craig's initial relief. Maddie, he said in a gruff tone, a word with you outside, please. He turned and stormed from the room. Maddie sensed his anger. She had an idea why he was upset. She pulled Silas to her chest, hugging him. Praise God, darling, he brung you back to me. Reflexively, Maddie jerked her head away from Silas, a foul odor of sweat and unwashed body parts attacking her nostrils. Shoo-wee, she said, crinkling her nose. Let me talk to Craig, real quick, then we'll get you bathed and fed. You lay here, and I'll be right back. She was nearly at the door when Silas called out to her. Hey, Mama. Yeah, sweetie. I love you. Me too, baby. Me too. Maddie, Craig bellowed from the hallway. A word, please. Maddie stepped into the hall and found Craig looking angrier than she'd ever seen him. Craig, what's wrong? Ain't you happy that? You want to tell me what's going on here? Craig growled, his heated eyes burning into Maddie's. What are you getting at? Can't you see a miracle has taken place? You'd think that you'd be happy. Craig pulled in air and released it slowly, hoping to calm himself before responding. Maddie, except for the room being torn up and some grungy pajamas, I don't see a thing wrong here. Maddie's breathing sounded like the huffing and puffing of a locomotive. Her face turned red, scrunching into a mask of anger. Are you suggesting that I faked all this? That I trashed Silas' room? And you think you're the one who ought to be ticked off? You got a huck for nerve coming in here like Johnny come lately and taking away my joy just 'cause you weren't around when all the trouble was going on. I was the one cleaning up the blood and puke. I was the one listening to all the howling and screaming. I turned to the one person in my crappy life who I believed might care enough to help me when things went south. And who do I get? My awful, no-account husband. That ain't fair, Maddie. You can't lump me in with that piece of crap. All I'm saying is that you've been under a lot of stress for too long a time. Anybody'd understand if you turned to self. Medication to numb the pain. Trashing. The boys' room was just you acting out who could blame. Yeah? Let Lorna and me help you out some. We can take Silas for a spell. Craig let his words of worry hover for a bit, allowing both of them time to let their heated emotions settle down. Maddie, I love ya. Please let me help ya get through this. Maddie crossed her arms across her heaving chest, shaking her head from side to side in frustration. Just forget it, Craig. I can handle this all by myself. I don't need. Sinister cackling traveled from the bedroom, crescendoing into a full-throated laugh. Maddie and Craig saw fear in each other's eyes. They inched toward the bedroom, sliding their feet haltingly over the carpet, stopping at the door. They looked on in terror at the scrawny creature with bright yellow eyes jumping up, down on the bed, like a hyperactive toddler. With its pajama top ripped away, they saw dark purple veins crisscrossing its bone-white body like railroad tracks. Small gray fangs shined through a pair of cracked, bloody lips. Gotcha! It screeched. Can't believe you fell for that. It began speaking in Maddie's voice. Oh, baby, are ya better now? Praise God, darling, he brung ya back to me. Then its own scratchy voice returned. Looks like God had a hole in the bag that he returned your sweet baby boy in. The demon flew off the bed and landed on the ceiling like a fly. Its head turned around on its crunching neck until it was peering down at Craig and Maddie, their faces fraught with unspoken horror. A long, forked tongue unfurled from its twisted mouth, smearing its face with a shiny goop. Heard you two going at each other in the hall. Oh, how I love it when the children fight. It resumed its loud chortling, causing the walls to crack under the deafening volume. That's what I thought. Lorna walked across the yard and climbed the porch's warped wooden steps. She beat on the front door like it had just trash-talked her mama. The loud pounding scared Craig and Maddie, who huddled together in the kitchen. That must be Lorna, said Maddie. Yeah, think? Craig replied sarcastically. Craig? Maddie? All still alive in there? Boomed the voice from the porch. A skinny, middle-aged man, wearing boxer shorts and a stained wife-beater tank top, came out on the porch of the house next door. He cupped his hands in front of his mouth. Hey, I'll better keep it down over there. I'll call the law if I have to. Lorna stomped to the edge of Maddie's porch and gave the man her patented glare of disapproval. You do that, you dingleberry from a baboon's butt crack. I'll come over there, yank 'em pissy, poopy, jizzy drawers down, and play your butt cheeks like a pair of conga drums. Anger left the man as he realized he'd poked the wrong bear. He broke eye contact with Lorna, letting his balding head drop to his puny, hairless chest. I'm awful sorry, Mom, he mumbled. I ain't been myself since my doll died. The pitiful man's excuse didn't move the needle on Lorna's compassion meter by a single digit. She hated dogs. El Superbo had seen to that. She had so little sympathy for dogs, injured or otherwise, that whenever one of Sarah McLachlan's animal welfare ads came on, she wanted to hunt her down and rip the arms off her angel. Lorna grinned at the grieving man. Well, considering he was your doll, it must have been a suicide. She turned on her heels and returned to the door just in time for Maddie to open it, leaving the distraught neighbor bawling with self-reproach. Oh, Lorna, Maddie said. Thank ya for coming. Craig's in the kitchen. Lorna gave her a firm hug. I'm glad to be here, Maddie darling. Let's get on to the kitchen, for Craig starts rooting through the trash. Lorna and Maddie entered the kitchen and found Craig sitting at a small table, his head buried in his hands. Lord, help us. Lord, help us, he mumbled repeatedly. Glad to see you're being so helpful, Craig, Lorna said, breaking his spell. We're both more than a little shook up, Maddie said, coming to Craig's defense. So what exactly's been going on? Lorna asked Maddie. Crouching tiger, hidden hamster over there, said something evil has taken over Silas. Care to clarify for me? Craig spoke first. Maddie, take her upstairs and let her see for herself. She'll never believe us otherwise. He's right, Lorna. I need you to understand what's happening to my baby. Words alone ain't enough to describe it. Lead the way, Lorna said officiously. Maddie led Lorna upstairs, with Craig bringing up the rear. She stopped at Silas's bedroom door. Be as strong as I know you can be, Lorna. It's like I told Craig, fear makes it laugh. Lorna scowled. Yeah, I'm like that too. Maddie opened the door and stepped aside, allowing Craig and Lorna to enter first. The former Silas was lying on his back in bed, his chest ballooning to a colossal size with each wheezy breath, his ribcage creaking from the strain. Craig and Maddie remained near the door, prepared to run if they needed to. Lorna marched to the foot of the bed with her hands rolled into fists and fire in her soul. She let out a short, shrill whistle, as though she were summoning a dog. "Hey, you in there, Silas. You better get on out here and talk to me." The creature's panting stopped. Its body stiffened and snapped into a standing position, as if it were falling down in reverse. Despite the demon boy's defiance of physics, Lorna remained nonplussed. "Well, now, that's something I don't see every day." She rested her hands on her wide hips, cocked her head to the side, and sized up her opponent. "That all you got, ya ugly goomer? I am not impressed. What you gonna do next? Pull a pony out to your butt?" "Do not mock me, woman," the demon growled. "Your kind holds no power over me. You might want to ask Craig about the power I have over men." Lorna looked back at Craig. "Testify, brother. Testify." "Choose your words carefully, bitch," the demon sneered. "Oh, snap," thought Craig. "I hope son of Chucky brought a helmet, some pads, and a jockstrap Co's Lorna's about to teach him some manners." Lorna's face contorted into a terrifying rictus of rage. "The only thing I'm gonna be choosing is which foot I'm gonna bury in your stupid butt." The Silas monster threw back its head and screamed in fury, fixing its hateful gaze on Lorna. "Begone, foolish pig." A powerful whoosh of air rushed through the room, lifting and propelling Lorna backwards. Craig had been on the receiving end of countless ticked-off Lorna looks, but this one, a look of fear and helplessness, was as chilling as it was foreign to him. Still, he couldn't help but snicker as he saw her whistling by like a barfly cannonball. Lorna's airborne body sailed through the doorway and along the short hall before being hurtled down the staircase by the demonic force. Craig and Maddie stood like statues as the sound of Lorna's hefty frame careening down the long flight of stairs reverberated throughout the house. When they heard her skidding to a stop at the bottom, they broke from their trance and went to check on her. They found Lorna sprawled near the front door, unconscious and looking worse for wear. Her ill-fitting spandex shorts were around her ankles, revealing her favorite pair of panties commemorating the musical career of Garth Brooks. The endless somersaulting down the staircase had caused her hair to wrap around her head like a bleach-blonde turban. Her droopy left boob had popped free of its restraint. "Dear God," Maddie shouted, rushing to Lorna. "Honey, speak to me. Please, wake up." Craig ambled down the steps and stood over the two. "You're doing it all wrong, rookie," he said to Maddie. "Watch this, pizza's here." Lorna sprang to a sitting position. "Yeah, better save me a slice, Slim Jim." "See, I told ya," Craig sniffed. Maddie threw her arms around Lorna. "Praise the Lord, darling. I was scared you was dead." Lorna pushed Maddie away. "Well, I will be, if you don't stop squeezing the life out me." Confused, she looked at Craig. "What the heck happened?" The devil boy chucked ya down them flight of stairs. "Your big old tail busted the heck out to the wall and banister." Talk about a racket, sounded like a Neopart solo. "The important thing is that you're all right," Maddie said. "I'm afraid to say it, but that awful thing has grown stronger, more dangerous." "What we gonna do, yeah?" Lorna stuffed her wayward boo back into her bra and brushed her hair from her face, revealing a look of contemplation. "I was hoping it weren't gonna come to this, but I think I might have an answer." Sunday morning was a hot one. It didn't help that the sanctuary was full and cramped. Lorna leaned close to Craig. "Dadgum, it's hotter than hell in here." "And humid too," Craig added. At least in hell, it's a dry heat. Are you sure this is a good idea? We don't know the first thing about this preacher. Myrna, from down at the Snappy Snip, said her mama comes here regularly. According to her, this guy's supposed to be a Bible-smacking fire and brimstone, no-holds-barred kind of preacher. If anybody can help get rid of that thing that's got its hooks into my angel, Silas, then it's gotta be this guy. All right, let's just settle in and see what we got here. Lorna and Craig observed a congregation made up of lower income, working-class people, men with grease beneath their nails wearing clip-on ties, and women who had so much makeup on they resembled Pennywise the clown if he'd been a drag queen. Looking at Craig, Lorna figured she had no reason to judge other people's appearances. Craig had never been one to dress to the nines. It was more like 2 3/4. She was often ashamed of being seen with him. She wistfully thought, if only I had married Mr. Right instead of getting stuck with Mr. Right next to the guy I should have married. Craig felt the side of his head getting hot. That meant that Lorna was giving him one of her heated stares. What is it now, Lorna? Spit it out. It'll improve the taste. Why'd you wear that tacky shirt? You look like the Grand Marshal in a gay pride parade. Lorna's offensive observation put Craig on defense. Maybe I wore this shirt to make a fashion statement. What's the statement to there? Sailor? New in town? And Lord have mercy, what is going on with your hair? I know I didn't style it like that. All I can say is you must have ticked off somebody at Great Clips. 'Cause ya look like Colin Kaepernick experimenting with Crisco and electricity. While one of 2 deacons was reminding a couple of congregants that smoking wasn't allowed inside the sanctuary, his counterpart made a loud announcement. Okay, everybody, stand for the entrance of the senior pastor. The crowd watched as a slump-shouldered man in a second-hand suit entered and stood behind a podium covered in green shag carpet. With the word Rev posted on the front in bright silver glitter, it looked like something you'd see on a reality show called Pimp My Pulpit. He had a creepy vibe about him, a combination of circus carny and serial pedophile. His slicked back hair was an unnatural shade of black that screamed expired Clairol hair dye. His eyes were dark and beady, his lips tight and thin. He had pulled back his facial skin so tightly that it made Lorna concerned that his eyeballs would pop out of his head. He faced away from the congregation and bowed to the wooden cross behind him. Lorna held back a guffaw of epic proportions when she noticed the duct tape on his neck that was serving as a DIY facelift. With a great theatrical panache, he motioned for the congregation to sit down. Don't freak out. Anthony starts swatting at imaginary flies, whispered someone seated behind them. He's only been out to rehab a few weeks, so he still has the DTs. The pastor cleared the smoker's phlegm from his throat, and the service began. Good morning, brothers and sisters, honored guests, and fellow hemorrhoid sufferers. I'm the Right Reverend Smellum, and I'd like to give a big ol' howdy-do to all of you here this morning at Buttermilk Bible Chapel, where sin is a 4-letter word. We're all thrilled to be here in our newly leased facility, or as it was called a short while back, AutoZone. If this is your first time here, we are deeply pleased. If this is your second time here, we are downright astonished. If'n you wouldn't mind, please grab one of them little red putt-putt pencils off the back of the seat in front of you and take just a moment to fill out one of our gees. I can't believe I let you drag me here cards. Before we begin, I have a few announcements to make. First off, for all you parents who dropped your kids off at our children's ministry, Please keep an eye peeled to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen next to me. If you see your child's assigned number flashing, please go as quickly as possible back to the children's ministry. The flashing number is an indicator that our volunteers have had enough of your little hopped-up howler monkey and are preparing to fling him out of a catapult they keep aimed at the interstate. Thank y'all in advance for your courtesy and cooperation. Also, we here at Buttermilk Bible Chapel, where sin is a four-letter. Oh, for the love of Mike Lindell's creepy mustache. Who came up with that slogan? Anyways, we care deeply about the well-being of all our members. In this spirit, we'll be holding a day-long seminar back in our fellowship trailer on May 15B, which will deal with the subject of Christian dieting and fitness. Now, I don't wanna start naming names or nothing, but some of y'all are so fat that when you jump up to sing, you make the praise band skip. Personally, I'd love to get as many of y'all as possible in here on Sunday mornings. I just don't want to have to grease the door frames to do it. It's pretty bad when only half a dozen of all can put us over our fire capacity. Well, let's get started. Many of you may have noticed that our praise band ain't here today. Apparently, while they were rehearsing over in the band director's garage on Wednesday night, they ingested some bad fondue. Consequently, they're all recovering from an evil force, more commonly known as the Screamin' Squirts. Still, if I may paraphrase scripture, what bad fondue meant for evil, the Lord meant for good. That explains our surprise treat. To fill in for our ailing praise band, we have some very special musical guests here this morning, all the way from Pork Rind, South Carolina. Please join me as we welcome a wonderful a cappella Southern gospel group, the Stuttering Shepherds. 4 nervous and well-attired men took the stage. One of them reached into his suit jacket and retrieved a pitch pipe. He blew into it, and they hummed to match its key. With their pitch set, they began the performance. Going down to the ERR River, going down to the ERR River, going down to the ERR River, gonna wash my SS sins away. Pastor Smellum rushed the stage. WHOOA. Judas on a moped. No wonder y'all come so cheap. Yeah, sound like the backup singers for Porky Pig. Thanks for coming, boys, but I'll take it from here. With their collective dignity stripped from them, the disgruntled and embarrassed quartet left the stage and headed for the nearest exit. As they passed, Lorna and Craig, one of them grumbled, I oughta GG grab hold of his Bible, DD duct tape him to a pew, and RRR read the book of GG Genesis to him. Smellum continued to hasten their exit. While the stuttering shepherds make their way down, could I get one of the deacons to go ahead and pay him out of petty cash? That way, we can get him on back to Pork Rind before the town council there has to look for a new group of village idiots. Smellum's eyes bulged when took a gander at his wristwatch. Well, would you look at the time? If we don't wrap up soon, we'll never beat the Baptists down to Cracker Barrel. Tell y'all what, we'll keep today's message short and sweet. Here we go. Today's message is God good, devil bad. Any questions? Good. Now, somebody find my car keys, and I'll see all next time here at Buttermilk Bible Chapel, where sin is a 4-letter. Oh, never mind. Craig and Lorna hung back while the other churchgoers shook Reverend Smellum's hand. After a few minutes of watching him press the flesh, it was finally their turn. The man's noxious scent, a mixture of hair oil and hard liquor, was so overpowering that it made their eyes water. And then there was his dandruff. Even though it was August in Claxton, Georgia, Lorna wondered if the clouds had opened up and sprinkled snowflakes over the shoulder pads of his navy blue suit. Upon seeing Craig and Lorna, Smellum flashed a wide jack-o'-lantern grin that revealed perfect, pearly white teeth. "Well, welcome. I don't believe I've seen y'all here before. What ya think of the service?" "Unforgettable," said Craig, "but Lord knows I'll try." Lorna made a different observation. "Is that whiskey I smell on your breath?" "Ma'am," Smellum stated resolutely, "I'll have you know that since I joined AA, alcohol has not touched my lips. However, I can't say enough about them new Jim Beam suppositories." After a quick chuckle, he continued, "Now then, let this old country pastor share an observation with you. I get the feeling you two ain't here to find religion. You're here 'cause you need some spiritual help. Am I right?" "That'd be right," Craig said. "I got this cousin, C, and she's having some terrible trouble with her boy. Lots of kids give their parents problems. Shoot, my mama and me fought all the time, but the makeup sex always made it worth it. What's so bad about this one that you have to turn to a pastor for help? Fair warning, I don't do counseling to others very well. Fact is, it's usually me in some type of counseling." "Can I be frank with you, Pastor?" asked Lorna. "You can be whoever you want to be," replied Smellum, ogling her sizable chest. Lorna was aghast. "Excuse me, but my face is up here." "Yeah, but your boobies are down here. And, boy howdy, they are a gay, glorious sight to behold." It was all Craig could do to not send Smellum's brilliant veneers flying across the parking lot, like rocket-propelled tic-tacs. "Now listen here, preacher or not. Nobody says that to my old lady." "Down, boy," Lorna said to Craig. "At my age, I'll take any compliment I can get." Craig snorted in frustration. "Fine, then." He glowered at Smellum. "Look, what she was trying to tell ya, we're trying to tell ya, is that it looks like a demon has possessed our young nephew. He looks like a monster, cusses like a sailor, and smells like a porta-potty. On an asparagus farm in South America, in the middle of July. Get the picture yet?" Smellum, offended by Craig's harsh tone, soured. "I'd like to help Bill, but I'm going to be tied up the rest of the afternoon." Worried he may have killed any chance of enlisting Smellum's help, Craig attempted to salvage things. "I'm sorry for what I said, Pastor. It's just that—" "Oh, Ronnie Doon," mewed an attractive woman wearing a sheer blouse and a skirt so tight you could tell her religion. "I'll be ready around 3 with your favorite rope." Smellum waved to her. "Might ought to go with nylon this time. Sugar, the jute tends to chafe." He resumed his awkward conversation with Craig and Lorna. "I know what this looks like, but a stallion's gotta run free." "Do tell," said Craig. "Don't tell," said Lorna. "Look, we'll do anything you need us to do to help you with the exorcism." Smellum's eyes spread wide as he raised his palms in a warding-off gesture. "Hang on, Sloopy. Sloopy, hang on. I never said nothing about doing no exorcism. That there's above my pay grade." Craig took a step closer to Smellum. "Reverend, we're just a couple of sinners in need of some mercy. Take me, for example. I wasn't baptized. I was pressure-washed. And Lorna, here, speak for yourself, oh burning itch on the groin of Satan. I may be mean, but that's 'cause I'm a sword of the Lord." Craig picked up where he'd left off. "Pastor Ronnie Don, God knows all about our mistakes. Every one of us has got a good old-fashioned belt been coming to us on the day of judgment. But I also know he's a God of mercy, of redemption. There's a sweet, innocent child who's probably being attacked by the devil himself. Maybe if we save him, we can earn a little of that redemption for ourselves. What is it the Bible says about standing up to evil? For such a time as this. Smellum felt convicted. It occurred to him that maybe, for the first time in a long time, he might live up to his sacred calling. Listen, this might be the jinn talking, but I'll try to figure out a while. Let me give the matter some thought, and we'll meet tomorrow to discuss it. How's about noonish at the Christian bookstore downtown on Fell Street? Craig and Lorna shared a palpable relief. Thank ya, preacher, Craig said, shaking Smellum's hand vigorously. We'll be there with bells on. Oh, I wouldn't do that, warned Smellum. That might seem weird and distracting to the other customers. Craig became flustered and impatient. No. I just meant that. He means we'll see ya there, Lorna finished. Smellum flashed a lightning white smile. It's a date, then. He staggered to a white Plymouth Neon, with a hood that someone had replaced with a purple one. He braced his foot against the frame on the driver's side of the wreck and pulled hard until the door popped free with a loud clang. After a couple minutes of fondling his way to his car keys, he got in and blasted out of the parking lot, marching band music blaring from the car speakers. Yeah, think he'll be able to help? Asked Craig. Lorna shrugged, shaking her head in doubt. I don't know, Craig. That boy's head is emptier than the tomb on Easter morning. As agreed, Craig and Lorna arrived at the bookstore Reverend Smellum had suggested, the Silence of the Lamb. Neither of them had ever been in a bookstore before, much less a Christian one, so they were a tad apprehensive. The rich smell of fresh coffee blends, baked goods, and honest-to-goodness hardcover books welcomed them. The lighting was gentle and inviting, unlike other stores with their harsh, bright lights that make everything look as if it were ready to be dissected in a sterile lab. Music of faith flowed down from overhead speakers, filling the store with its melodic messages of hope and love in a world that's been breaking bad for a while. A smiling young woman in a colorful floral sundress greeted them. Hi, she said cheerfully. Welcome to Silence of the Lamb. My name's Anna. Can I help you find anything? Nah, Craig said sheepishly. We're supposed to be meeting a preacher here in a bit. I think we'll do a little exploring whilst we wait. Okay, said Anna. Our cafe is straight back. Our music section is along that left wall, and our books are everywhere else. Please, let me know if I can help you in any way. Lorna trembled. She felt her aura of meanness and harsh judgment wilting under the bold, golden light of the young woman's genuine kindness. In her distress, Lorna reached to her right, grabbed a small brass cross from a shelf, and held it in front of Anna's face. Flee from me, oh sweet, perky cherub of goodness. Anna's bright eyes widened. Her bottom lip gave in to gravity, as if she were using a brick as a lip ring. I'll just go then. Let me know if you change your minds. She turned and trotted down a narrow aisle, hiding behind a large wooden bookcase located under a banner that read, Jesus Saves, and so can you with our frequent shopper card. Craig narrowed his eyes at Lorna. Now why in the world would you go and be mean to somebody as nice as that? I can't exactly say, Lorna said. Her humility, intelligence, and warmth were too overwhelming. I could feel my hatred of you and others slipping away. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't just let her take away my reason for living. Besides, she made me feel inadequate, With people like that in line at the pearly gates, I'll never get into heaven. Oh, now? Sure you will, Craig said consolingly. They'll just give you a room near the ice-making machine. Lorna, as she typically was with one of Craig's pithy remarks, was unamused. Her face hardened, and her voice dropped to the floor, rumbling octaves she used to get a point across to the victim in her crosshairs. Yeah, I know, Craig. There's times when I want to thank you for caring enough about me to lovingly speak hard truths, no matter how much it pains you to do so. But then, there's times like now when I want to squirt ya in your face with Wood 40, light your head on fire, and watch ya hop around like a dancing tiki torch. Craig had once promised Lorna that he would love her for all his days. He never said those days would run consecutively. Now look, Lorna, I was only saying that. Someone nearby was clearing their throat loudly. Lorna and Craig turned toward the noise and saw Reverend Smellum sitting at a table in the cafe, waving his arms, trying to get their attention. Craig waved back. Then he and Lorna walked towards the cafe. Along their crooked path, they sauntered by rows of bobblehead disciples and poorly made religious films with a budget that could barely cover breakfast at IHOP. They paused to play with a life-sized Moses doll that danced to a hip-hop version of Bringing in the Sheaves when they clapped their hands. After watching the biblical prophet throw his hands in the air like he just didn't care, they joined Smellum at his table in the cafe. The prurient pastor was well into a thick, meaty sandwich. The loud, wet smacking of his lips sounded like someone beating an octopus against a brick wall. Y'all want something to eat? I love these here turkey and Havarti sandwiches. I get 'em with bacon. I know beer is God's way of saying He loves His children and wants 'em to be happy. And bacon is His way of saying He misses us and wants us to drop by the house real soon. Still, how's about one of these suckers? The church gives me an expense account for stuff like this. Bless their hearts. They also give me another used company car when I drove the last one through the coffee bar. I gotta tell ya, I love them folks. They knew right off the bat I had a problem with the firewater. The drugs, the hookers, them poor little farm animals that we got. Yeah, Craig interrupted, for all their sakes. Like we told ya at the church, we got kin who might be possessed by none other than Old Scratch himself. The doctors ain't helped. The child psychologists ain't helped. The Robitussin ain't helped, and that crap cures everything. Oh, there, Sally. Yeah, better slow that Mustang down, said Smellum. Describe to me some symptoms you've seen. Craig hesitated. He feared that if he relayed everything he'd witnessed to the Reverend, he might appear crazy. Then whom would he ever find to help them deal with the demon? Lorna sensed Craig's reluctance. Walking up the walls, he's been walking up the walls. His body is all deformed. We hardly recognize him. He speaks in tongues and says the most god-awful things you can't ever imagine coming from a little boy. His mama's tired and scared. All's we're asking is that you come by and look for yourself. Hopefully, with you being a man of God and all, you can do something to help the child. Smellum stroked his chin and thought, this might be the meth talking, but you've stoked my curiosity. Course, it was curiosity that killed the cat. You sure? Lorna asked. I thought it was the brick I throwed at it. Lorna, please, said Craig. That's neither here nor there. Smellum's face took on a puzzled look. Well, if it ain't here nor there, where the heck is it? Can we get back to the matter at hand? Asked Lorna. Sure enough, Smellum boomed, slapping his palms on the tabletop. What say we break some bread together? He turned and hollered at a woman behind a counter full of baked goods. Excuse me there, miss. Could we get a couple more of them turkey and Havarti sandwiches? He leaned toward Craig and Lorna. I'll want tea with that. Yep, Craig said. And can we get an appetizer too? Of course, the calf employee said. What would you like? Craig and Lorna perused the laminated menu. Give us one of them Nazarene nacho platters, Lorna instructed. The woman entered the information into a POS system and went about helping another employee in the kitchen prepare the order. Smellum leaned back and laced his nicotine-stained fingers behind his well-oiled head. Before we get rolling on this thing, I feel it would be fitting to lay our cards on the table. In admitting our sins to one another, we establish honesty and accountability. Craig, you want to start us off. For example, are you a practicing Christian? I sure am. I'm hoping that if I keep practicing, I might be good enough to go pro after my senior year. Lorna rolled her eyes. Just ignore him, Pastor. Craig's a real smartass. Well, it did score a 1600 on its SAT, Craig said proudly. Smellum turned to Lorna. Okay, young lady, your turn. Share with me something that you struggle with from time to time. If the idea was to lay her soul bare, then Lorna was going for the gold. Some nights, I like to watch Craig sleep while I toy with ideas about how I can scratch murder off my bucket list. Craig shook his head. Not only was Lorna driving him to an early grave, she was lead-footing and blowing through stop signs to get him there. Woman, you're so cold that every time I kiss ya, my scrotum shrivels and I get an ice cream headache. Smellum broke in to quell the dispute. Looks like it's time for me to do some confessing. I got a thing for the ladies there, I said it. Yeah, baby, when it comes to getting my freak on, I like to head on down to Funky Town. Back when I was doing mission work in Korea, I used to frequent this place where a dominatrix by the name of Song Sung Blue would whip my bare bottom with a strip of Hot Wheels track. Talk about some ooh la la. Lorna had heard far too much info. Well, I can assure you, my Craig may have his faults, but he ain't never had no hooker named Song Sung Blue whippin' his butt. She's right, Craig agreed. Hooker who lit up my fanny was named Velvet. Shut up, Lorna bellowed. She was relieved when the server, identified as Bethany on her name tag, brought the appetizers to their table. When Craig reached out his hand to grab one of the hot, cheesy chips, Lorna slapped his wrist. Will you just hold on 1 second? She said. She looked at Smellum. I've always wondered about something. Fire at will, Smellum answered, reaching for a nacho himself. Do you say grace when the salad or appetizers come, or do you wait until the entrée? I usually do it over the entrée myself. Excuse me, but that's not quite accurate, said Bethany from behind the counter. It's the first food to arrive that you're to bless. A man's voice behind them chimed in. No, no, no. You say grace when the actual meal comes out, not before. Oh, nonsense, Herman, said the man's female companion. It's appropriate to bless the meal once the initial process begins. The man seemed offended and embarrassed by the correction. Sorry, you'll all have to overlie wife's remark. Then he addressed his wife. Look, Natalie, it only makes sense to give thanks when the best part of the meal is partaken. Well, what about those of us who enjoy desserts the most? Asked Craig. For us, that's the best part of the meal. With all due respect to everyone, said Bethany, Neither salads nor appetizers were served during the Last Supper, and that's about as big a culinary event as ever there was. So technically, they blessed the first thing that was brought out. Lorna, an active participant in many backyard squabbles, could see where this train car full of poisonous chemicals was heading. She attempted to intervene before it got derailed. "Listen, y'all, there ain't no cause to get all worked up about. You're a jerk, Herman," screeched Natalie. "You're woefully ignorant of biblical dining protocol, and, frankly, a selfish lover." Herman recoiled at Natalie's public announcement. "Oh, yeah, as we laid in the darkness on the first night I took you. I was, of course, wrong. You just don't have any boobs. My word," shouted Bethany, her face reddened with embarrassment. "Oh, shut up," Natalie yelled at her. "You and your insipid yammering about, at the Last Supper. Why to go into the janitor's closet and drown yourself in a mop bucket?" Bethany drew her hands to her face in shock. "You're so hurtful. It's no wonder Herman doesn't love you anymore." She stormed to the rear of the kitchen, weeping loudly and bitterly. Herman was incensed. "Are you happy now, you dried-out shrew? You're like a disease. You infect everyone you touch." Natalie jumped to her feet, almost toppling the table. She was shaking with hatred and fury. "Oh, screw you, Herman. Whatever this has been is over." She stormed from the cafe, stopping and turning after a few steps. "And I want my panties back, you freak. When you wear them, you stretch them out. Good. They'll match your face," he roared. "Oh, and before I forget," Natalie countered, "I faked my orgasms." "Me too," Herman yelled. "Well, I never," Natalie barked, before stomping her way to the front of the bookstore. "And with a face like yours, you never will," Herman retorted. Craig, Lorna, and the Reverend exchanged curious and troubled glances. "Maybe we should take this outside," Lorna suggested. "The air just got heavy in here. Besides, I think there's been way too much sharing going on." "Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable," agreed Craig. "I suppose we might oughta lay off the touchy-feely stuff and cut to the chase," Smellum said. He shouted toward the kitchen. "Hey, Beth, could you cancel the rest of our order? Just set us up with 3 of them, super chunky chocolate chip cookies to go. I promise we won't bless 'em." As they congregated in the store's parking lot, Lorna posed the big question. "So, will ya help us or not?" Smellum thought back to the words Craig had shared the day before. "Yes, ma'am. I believe I will. Look, this might be the black tar heroin talking, but I think I'm being called on for a purpose. Give me the address, and I'll go by and check things out for myself. If I think this is a spiritual matter, I'll call upon all my years of experience as a pastor and a healer. If I don't think I can help, I'm gonna have to all to reimburse me for the gas. The deacons have been keeping a closer eye on my receipts since my troubles with the cartels." "It's a deal," said Craig. "When can you come?" "The sooner, the better." Smellum pulled in an emphysema-laden breath. "There's no better time than now. Take me to the boy." "Well, okay," Lorna said, enthusiastically. "Let's put her in the wind." They piled into their respective vehicles and pulled out of the parking lot, each with important thoughts on their minds. "Craig, I have hope, genuine hope. Lorna, I sure hope we know what we're doing. And Smellum, I wonder if I can reach that last bit of joint I dropped on the floorboard. That sucker's got at least one more good toke in it. Please, Will you just stop? Maddie begged from the living room. The thrashing, the voices, and the steady drop in temperature were driving her mad. She tried several times to check on Silas after Craig and Lorna went to find an exorcist. But each time she did, the closet door slammed shut in quick succession, and the bulky furniture shifted around, bumping into one another like bumper cars, causing her to flee in terror. The deafening sound filled her ears with pain and horror. The sound was so loud that it echoed through the air. It was like a chorus of ghouls and demons wailing a dark funeral dirge. If hell had a theme song, this would be it. Maddie pressed her hands against her ears. No more. No more. She was sobbing so loudly, she didn't notice the heavy knocking on her front door. It took Lorna yelling her name repeatedly before she found the strength to get up and answer it. She felt like a ghost, drifting through a heavy fog, her emptiness and exhaustion making her feel weightless. As she opened the door, she was struck by the surprised expressions of the three people in front of her. "Oh my God, Maddie," Lorna said. "You look awful." Maddie resembled an inmate from a sadistic, insane asylum. Her hair was oily, dirty, and uncombed, her face devoid of color and emotion. She was still wearing the clothes she'd had on from their last visit. An abominable stench emanated from her malnourished frame. "Mon in," Maddie mumbled robotically. She turned around and shuffled down the hall, her bare feet squeaking as she dragged them along the wooden floor. The haunting cacophony that the monster was performing upstairs was at its highest intensity. An icy tendril of terror snaked its way up the backs of Lorna, Craig, and Smellum. Upon reaching the disheveled living room, the threesome exchanged worried glances as the shell of Maddie Womack dropped to the sofa. "Maddie, look at me," Lorna hollered, trying to be heard over the din of the damned. Craig knelt in front of Maddie and held her chilly hands in his. Maddie's vacant eyes peered absently into Craig's, as though he weren't there, weren't real. Smellum was paler than usual, less cocky. "Sounds like she's got choir practice going on. We should probably be polite and come back at a more convenient time." His words angered Craig. "Are you serious? Do you not hear what's coming out to that bedroom? We got to do something now, before we lose Silas forever." Smellum wasn't expecting this much terror. He was literally shaking in his shoes. "This might be the Prococa talking, but I'm in over my head here. I think y'all might want to call up one of them Catholic priests who do exorcisms, how Target employees ignore customers regularly and with great passion." Craig rose and went to the sputtering pastor, pressing his nose within an inch of his sweaty face. "We ain't got time for that now. But what if that thing tries to kill me?" Lorna cut Smellum a nasty look. "Would you rather deal with me or some crazed monster from the pits of hell?" "A crazed monster from the pits of hell," said Smellum, Craig, and Maddie in unison. "All right," Lorna said. "Let's get to her, then." "Before we begin," said Smellum, pulling an ornate flask from the inner pocket of his ill-fitted jacket. "Holy water?" asked Craig. "Fire water," said Smellum, taking a long pull of the flask's questionable contents. "Ooh, Padre," Lorna said. "You're sucking that down like a diabetic camel." She grabbed Smellum by the crook of his arm and yanked him up the stairs. "Showtime, big boy." Craig turned to Maddie, who looked like a filthy mannequin. "Ladies and gentlemen, Maddie has left the building," he thought. He stepped in front of her, put his hand under her chin, and lifted her face. Looking at the husk of his sweet cousin filled his heart with profound sadness, and his eyes with tears so heavy they could barely hold them. "I swear to Yah, Maddie, we gonna save Silas. You've lost enough already. You're not losing him too." Sniffling, he followed Lorna and Smellum upstairs. The ear-piercing sounds grew louder as they made their way down the hall to Silas' room. Lorna squinted from the shrill singing, fearful that her ears might bleed. Placing her hand on the doorknob, she braced for the rupture of her eardrums. She quickly twisted the knob. The instant she threw open the door, the horrific sound stopped. Smellum spoke first. Did I just go deaf, or did the racket stop? Who wants to go first? Craig whispered from behind them. Whoever goes in there first will probably find themselves in the greatest and most probable danger, Lorna said, before shoving Smellum inside the room. E. Smellum squealed as he tumbled near the bed's foot. Great, googly moogly, I don't want to die. He lifted his flask and doused the air in front of him with its contents. With the spilling of this not entirely holy liquid, I banish you, evil spirit. He returned the flask to his lips and threw back an enormous swig. Same sentiment as before, vile demon. After gulping another shot, he slurred, Verily, I say again. Knock it off, ya useless souse, yelled Lorna. We got work to do. Calm, grinning demon was sitting cross-legged on the bed. Oh, would you look at that? Big girl and little man have returned for more. It watched Smellum as he reluctantly stood up. And they brought a friend, too. Craig and Lorna joined Smellum at the end of the bed. Yeah, no, said Lorna. I've just about had enough of your ugly face. You're right about us bringing reinforcements. We're here to take you out and bring our baby back. What's he gonna do? The demon chuckled, referring to Smellum. Breathe on me? Smellum felt embarrassed. He hadn't suffered this much shame since the time the deacons had caught him skinny dipping in the baptismal pool. Pushing away the weight of his inadequacies, he locked eyes with the foul creature. This might be the whippets talking, but you're gonna give us that boy's soul back. I know you ain't scared of me, but you're a coward before the Lord. You tell him, preacher, said Craig. Although, to be fair, he made a good point about you breathing on him. I know my peepers are sure starting to simmer. The demon laughed. You three are pathetic. Leave me. In an instant, he plunged the room into profound darkness, as if someone had flicked off a light switch. The trio felt themselves hurtling uncontrollably through a frigid void of impenetrable darkness. The sensation was disorienting, like being trapped in a vacuum. Suddenly, the motion came to an abrupt halt. Craig screamed, his voice high with panic. Where are we? Lordy, I think he sent us to hell. Lorna felt trapped in a tight enclosure, pressed against the other two. She perceived a dank, musty odor and heard metal tinkling on metal. A thought occurred to her. Unless hell has wire hangers and smells like mothballs, we may be a mite closer to home. She proved her point when she reached down and opened the closet door. They each felt a wave of relief when they stepped out into the first-floor foyer. I know he's of the devil and all, but color me impressed, said Smellum. Know what you mean, preacher, Craig said. I seen this TV special a while back where Penn and Teller made a submarine disappear. Oh. Smellum chirped with childlike excitement. I seen that one too. Say, did you know that Teller can actually talk? I knowed that lil feller could talk. He weren't fooling me for a sec. Shut up, the two of ya. Lorna shouted. We got real trouble on our hands, if that thing can control us this way. What we supposed to do to battle that kind of supernatural ability? I think it's time for me to seek some answers by appealing to a higher power, said Smellum. The good Lord, I expect, guessed Craig. Google, replied Smellum. He removed his phone from his pocket and spoke into it. How to defeat demons. As Smellum thumbed the screen, Craig became increasingly anxious. Come on, preacher. How do we do it? Smellum continued scrolling, then stopped. This might be it. According to this here article, we gotta use our center and power forward to force the team's will on. No, wait. It's a basketball article on the Northwestern University Demons. Let's scroll down a bit more. After a couple of swipes, he came to an article on demonic possession, which outlined the official protocol employed by the Catholic Church. Okay, it says here that the best thing you can do to thwart a demon is to force it to give you its name. Once you got that, you can compel it to leave the victim's body and return to hell. How are we supposed to do that? That thing ain't only strong, it's clever. Craig reminded him. We better try something sooner than later, Lorna added. Otherwise, we'll be out of options. Like hell you will, screamed Maddie, coming back to life. It's not taking my baby. Yeah, hear me? It's not taking him anywhere. If you're thinking about giving up, then go on, get out. I'm his mama. Ain't none of ye all that's gonna fight harder than me. Oh, Maddie, croaked Craig. You ain't gonna be doing this alone. We're in this with ya. Now, come on, y'all. Let's go back up there and show Lucifer's nutsack that he's done ticked off the wrong clan. I'm into that, Lorna exclaimed. Smellum lifted his face purposefully towards the heavens. This might be the bath salts talking, but I'm in this till the end as well. Well, that's good enough for me, said Craig. Thinking of her weak partners, Lorna's head drooped in doubt. Saints, preserve us. The bedroom door was open when they arrived. No one dared to enter first. I can smell you out there, teased the creature. Smells like fried chicken and fear. Maddie stomped into the room, bold and determined. The Silas monster sat atop the dresser, staring menacingly. Mama Bear come back to save her precious whittle boy cub. Its sarcasm didn't affect Maddie's demeanor or her courage. Is that supposed to upset me? You sound like a pipsqueak playground bully. You're gonna have to do a whole lot better than hurling sticks and stones to get me out of this room, you vulgar son of a whore. Maddie's line in the sand amused and empowered the others. Still, they feared that stirring up the powerful creature could bring them more harm. The demon jumped with squirrel-like agility, bounced off the ceiling, and settled on a chair, giving Maddie an unsettling gaze. Didn't your friends tell you I can banish all of you from this room on a whim? The rest of the group worried when Maddie walked near the chair and addressed the demon directly. You can banish us from this room 100 times, and we'll come right back 100 times to deal with you and your arrogance. The gruesome being stepped off the chair, peered up at Maddie, and bared its rotting teeth, its eyes glowing in the dim light. It extended its arms, and a sickening sound of bone cracking echoed through the air. The skin stretched and strained like elastic, emitting a pungent odor of burning flesh. The sight of the skin tearing apart was both grotesque and fascinating, as if the creature was shedding an old layer. It grabbed Maddie with its spindly fingers and threw her across the room, startling the others. After hitting the wall, she lay motionless but alive. Craig, Lorna, and Smellum were riveted in place by terror as the creature's arms slithered back into place like retracting fire hoses. The small beast cackled. For our remaining customers, we'll be passing out free samples of violence today in our deli. Be sure to stop by and try some. Its face formed a smug smile, assured that it had won. However, what it didn't count on was the rage and commitment that fueled the other three. "You sorry sack of snot," yelled Lorna. "It's time to drop the mic, cue the sunset, roll the credits, and wait for the blooper reel. 'Cause your butt is done." It was not a supernatural force, but a ticked-off, redneck, trailer trash meanness that Lorna used to propel herself at the demon. She grabbed the grimy creature, throwing it on the bed and pinning its shoulders to the stained mattress. She laid haymakers on it that would have made the World Boxing Association proud. "Gimme me your name, you sorry S.B. Gimme your name," she yelled with every powerful punch. The demon raged and thrashed wildly as the hammy fists continued to rain down upon its face. Lorna wailed louder. I said, "Gimme your dadgum name." Her fury turned to frustration when the hellish ghoul laughed at her. "It's gonna take more than a couple of trailer parks to keep me down," it chuckled. Craig would not let the creature speak about the two most important women in his life that way. Outrage surged through his veins like liquid fire, his fear turning to fury. "I don't know what you demons do in hell, but here in Georgia, if you talk trash to another man's family, you're gonna get a 1,500 square foot, double-wide, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, galley kitchen with a deck off the back, beat down." He gripped the thing's ankles. "Preacher, do your stuff." Smellum railed against the beast. "Gimme your name, you foul, despicable pawn of Satan. Reveal yourself to me." The demon opened its mouth, and the screams of legions of lost souls erupted from its throat. The room shook as the temperature plummeted, frosting the trio's breaths and fogging the window panes. Smellum proclaimed the name that bends the knee of every angel in heaven and every demon in hell. "I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to reveal your name, you filthy coward." "My name is Med Kala Op Sum Dio Med Vala." "Oh!" it roared. The revelation of the demon's lengthy name overwhelmed Smellum. "Don't suppose there's a nickname y'all go by?" Craig concurred. "Dang, and I thought Keegan Michael Key was a mouthful." Fed up with everyone, Lorna put a stop to all the nonsense. "You listen to me, Mr. Ching Chang Kala Walla Bing Bang, or whatever your dopey name is. You better take leave of this boy's body, or I'm gonna keep on holding you down while Craig pulls up Spotify and plays some of that jazz fusion mess." "That's right, I ain't talking about that Kenny G. easy listening style of commercial jazz. I'm talking about that Miles Davis, Wynton Marsalis crap that sounds like a bunch of tone-deaf amateurs tuning up." The creature fought back harder against its human restraints. In a stronger attempt to free itself, it flew upwards, taking Craig and Lorna with it, colliding with the ceiling. The impact was so intense that the ceiling cracked, sending tiny particles of dust and debris raining down. The overpowering presence held them in place, with a grip so strong that they could feel their bones rattling. It was an overwhelming experience, and they were powerless against it. The Silas creature plummeted to the mattress and glowered at Smellum. Smellum found himself trapped between his faltering faith and the demon before him. His panicked mind drew upon a pivotal scene in the movie The Exorcist, when Father Damien Carras invited the demon into his body. "Oh, most putrid spawn of Lucifer, leave this child and enter my body." Silas' head thrashed from side to side, and his eyes rolled back, revealing only the whites. His body tensed up, his muscles stiffening, as the demon's spirit violently departed from him. The sound of it leaving was like a deafening screech, as if 1,000 nails were being dragged across a chalkboard. Suddenly, Smellum felt his insides burning and melting like candle wax. Vivid images of serpents squirming through pits of fire and hideous creatures clawing at the tortured flesh of the screaming damned invaded his horrified mind, prompting him to yell, "Go back into him! Go back into him!" When the demon refused, he realized it was up to him to seal the deal. Like Father Karras, in the iconic movie scene, he darted across the bedroom and hurled himself at the window. However, instead of bursting through the glass and falling to a long stone staircase below, he splattered against the window like a bug on a windshield. His body squeaked as it slid slowly downward, leaving a gooey trail of spit and snot. "Whoops," Craig said from his spot on the ceiling. Guess he wasn't aware of the city code that all second-story windows have to be made of tempered glass. Silas let out a blood-curdling scream as the demon's sinister black spirit slithered its way into his vulnerable soul yet again. The putrid stench of sulfur filled his nostrils, and the palpable sensation of the twisted entity made his skin crawl with fear. The sound of its menacing laughter echoed in his mind, sending shivers down his spine. The feeling of its icy grip on his soul left him gasping for air, making him unable to break free from its grasp. "Well, well," the creature beamed. "I guess that just about does it. Say your goodbyes to Silas. He won't be coming back." Without warning, Maddie threw herself at the demon, pulling him to her bosom in a fierce hug. "Maddie, no," Lorna bellowed, thrashing to free herself. Maddie ignored her warning. "Silas, Mama loves you. I remember the day you were born. My heart was so full, I thought it might burst." Stunned, the demon struggled to free itself from Maddie's embrace. "Don't listen to her, boy. She's lying. You mean nothing to her." "Shut up, you filth," Maddie yelled. "Silas, you're the rock that I cling to, the love that keeps me alive. Baby, if you can hear Mama, come back to me, fight this thing." A strong, wailing wind engulfed the room, producing a cyclone of sound. "This is all your fault, Silas. You're the reason your father left," the monster cried in desperation. "That's just not true, baby. He left because he's weak and selfish. This is about you and me. I love you, sweetie. I need you in my life." Maddie pulled Silas to the floor, embracing him more fully. She squeezed her eyes shut in fervent prayer. "God, please bring my baby back to me. I don't care anymore about all the other pain. Just please, Father, let me have my boy back." The room warmed and brightened to where everyone shielded their eyes for fear of going blind. "No, you can't have him," the demon shouted, its cracking voice full of anguish. "Give him back to me." Maddie hugged her son's body tighter. "In the name of the Lord, go to hell, you nasty monster." Suddenly, the hellish wind died, the brilliant light diminished, and the room fell silent. Lorna and Craig dropped from the ceiling, landing on the mattress with a loud sproing. "What just happened?" asked Lorna. "Love brought him back to me," Maddie replied. "It didn't take any potions or incantations. It only took a reminder that God's love can never be taken without our permission." Came the voice from below the window. "What's going on? Am I dead?" "No, preacher," said Craig. "You're still among the living. Maddie here saved the day." Silas coughed. "Mama, is that you?" Maddie's face lit up with a long-absent smile. "Yeah, darling, it's me. How ya feeling?" "Tired, but good. I had a nightmare, though." I dreamed I was in a dark place. I kept calling for you, but you didn't answer, at least not at first. But then I heard you shouting at somebody, demanding they let me go. Next thing I knew, here I was. He yawned, stretching his overworked body. Can I have some ice cream? I'm really hungry. Maddie's eyes glistened with tears of elation as she basked in the moment. Yes, baby. You can have all the ice cream you want. Silas looked around the room. What's Craig and Lorna doing here? And who's that fella sitting on the floor? They's the people who helped bring you back from that awful place. Smellum stood, shaking the fog from his head. Hi there, Silas. I'm the Right Reverend Smellum from Buttermilk Bible Chapel, where sin is a... Silas, Craig interjected. The important thing is that, as a family, we can overcome anything. Whether it's your daddy's foolishness or the devil himself, nothing can break our bond. Maddie gathered Silas, and they all went downstairs to revel in their hard-fought victory over the darkness. Then they had some ice cream. They stood in the driveway exchanging hugs, along with promises that they'd stay in touch more often. On the porch, Silas sat quietly, his heart heavy with thoughts of the love and laughter that had departed with his lowly father, only to be returned in abundance. I want to thank y'all for what you done today, Maddie said to Craig and Lorna. You two sure make a great team. Yeah, said Lorna. He's good at creating fiascos, and I'm good at solving them. Craig refused to be outdone. And I'm good at kicking tail, while Lorna here is good at numbers. The number to Domino's, the number to Jimmy John's. That's enough, Craig, Lorna replied. The number to Grubhub. Craig, I said that's enough. The number to DoorDash. Craig's ill-advised name game came to an immediate stop when he received free of charge. Of course, the slap heard around the world. There's another number I know, Dung Drip 911, barked Lorna. Want me to call it? Y'all are too much sometimes, chimed Maddie. She looked caringly at Silas. Yeah, no, I used to curse God for all the terrible, heartbreaking things that haunted me. Now I'm grateful. I'm grateful because he showed me that happiness ain't about having what you want. It's about wanting what you have. All I ever needed to heal me was right here all along. Craig kissed Maddie's forehead and pulled it to his own. Never forget that you got us, too. As long as we're together, not even the powers of hell can touch us, Lorna said, joining the two. Smellum looked on, taking care to keep a respectful distance from the family circle. Okay then, Craig said. It's time for everything to get back to normal. We'll see you and Silas next week. Then looking at Silas, yelled, and there'll be plenty of ice cream. Wouldn't miss it for the world, replied Maddie. Then she went to Smellum and hugged him. Silas wasn't the only one who got healed today, was he? Smellum remained silent. There was no bragging to be done. Lordy, I better get home and take care of Elle, sued Craig. There ain't no telling what he's been into whilst we was gone. He slid inside his old truck's trashy cab and shouted a last message. Okay, yeah, smoke 'em if you got 'em, drink those glasses to the bottom. Ain't that what the weirdo on that podcast always says? Lorna asked, walking to her pumpkin car. He ain't no weirdo. How would you know? 'Cause I'm a weirdo, and I ain't never seen him at the meetings. Lorna stood next to her festive heap, taking time to criticize Craig's. I'll wait and make sure that old rusty monstrosity of yours cranks. When are you gonna trade that old Chevy truck in for something nicer, like a Cadillac Escalade? Woman, there ain't no way I'm ever trading in my Chevy for a Cadillac cack. Whatever, said Lorna. Once Lorna and Craig had left, Maddie took advantage of the opportunity to thank Smellum privately. Reverend Smellum, I can't thank you enough for what you done for us. We're gonna have to start coming to your church. Like it or not, you're a part of our lives now. She kissed him on his cheek, joined Silas, and went inside the house, leaving Smellum to bask in the afternoon sunlight. Smellum lingered for a while, then went to his new, used car and performed the laborious ritual required to open the driver's side door. Before climbing in, he rested his arms on the car's roof and gazed at the puke green house. Smiling broadly, he touched his cheek. "Gotcha," he hissed,